This episode repeats the last scene of the previous one before the opening, which is a massive waste of time. To be fair, that is not a monster-only problem, many series like to do that. But my god, is it ever annoying watching these in one go, especially because Monster already has the habit of repeating information ad nauseam. Not so much in these early episodes, but we will get there. Lunge tries to interrogate Adolf, making some of the strangest remarks ever put on television. Firstly, he says that only a few people could slit a throat cleanly, which is not really true. Seriously, it's not that hard, and Adolf, as an average-built man, could probably do it easily. But that's not that important, because we also have this absolute banger. This line might be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Number 1. As I said, you really do not need any special skill to kill someone with a knife, especially if you have comrades that restrain every other potential troublemaker. Number 2. Which potential suspect? Just everyone you've ever seen near the crime scene? Because that would realistically be the list of men that would be skilled with knives. Also, this is already under the assumption that the actual murderer has been reportedly seen in the area, which actually seems unlikely if it was done by someone who's apparently a professional killer. Speaking of that, number 3. If your list is actually one of criminals who are known to have skill with a knife, whatever that's supposed to mean, who were near the crime scene before it became one, why would you assume that one of them actually did it? Wouldn't it mean that they have a criminal record for being cutthroat? What kind of idiot would hire someone who's doing the shit who was previously convicted? Number 4. If there are people around who are known to be expert knifers, and a couple got murdered, and people saw them in the area, wouldn't they be arrested immediately? Why the hell was this list only created after Lunge deduced that this was a band of serial killers? Also, there's this translation of it, which is absolutely hilarious out of context. After Lunge confronts him with the fact that they have to have been hired for these jobs to pay off, Adolf loses his shit and Tenma kicks the inspector out. Lunge then tells Tenma that he'll watch him closely to make sure Adolf doesn't get poisoned conveniently. On the one hand, it follows that Lunge would find his behavior suspicious, but it sure as hell doesn't follow that Lunge would tell him that instead of installing some surveillance without Tenma's knowledge to catch him red-handed. But that Lunge isn't the smartest seems pretty much in character by now. The policeman, who is now stationed in front of Adolf's room, asks Tenma where he's going when Tenma takes the patient for some time outside, and Tenma just tells him to come with if he's so worried. That is actually completely sensical. What isn't, though, is that the policeman doesn't actually follow him. Apparently he's very attached to this corridor, but not so much to his job. Tenma then tells Adolf his backstory out of the blue, conveniently leaving out the part where he decided to let the mayor die to spite his boss, and his completely retarded first come first serve rule. Naoki Urasawa also proves that he's a big fan of Trigun, but apparently missed all the parts where Ash is called out on his bullshit. Adolf then says that he sees Tenma as a father, because he saved his life? I don't think that's how anything works. That's just a really weird thing to say. But don't worry, weird things about fathers is kind of a theme in Monster. I'm not saying that Naoki Urasawa wants to tell us something. At least not intentionally. You will see what I mean later. I'll make a counter for that. Because Tenma set the trend of just randomly telling your whole life story to someone, Adolf proceeds to do just that. We'll get many completely unprompted backstories throughout Monster, so I'll make a counter for it as well, counting this one as the second. His backstory, by the way, is that he became a thief because he wanted a cool clock, so he broke in, got caught immediately, and then started picking locks for his job. Somehow. If you don't really see any logic behind this, I can only tell you, same. But I already know that this is just a setup for the next scene, which is really dumb again, so look forward to that. Adolf then mentions that all of his partners were killed by the monster, and then we cut to the next scene, because Monster hates you. Tenma now discusses his dating plans with Dr. Becker, and happens to see that clock Adolf talked about just now, randomly in a shop window. He found the clock that this guy wanted his whole life, conveniently sitting there in a store. Apparently on the same day. Okay, Monster. Okay. Also, Tenma buys it instantly because he's a good man and brilliant doctor, of course. Cut to the next scene, the hallway in front of Adolf's room, with the police officer standing there. That's important. Inside, Adolf reflects on Tenma's words and wants to confess right this moment, despite it being the middle of the night. But his plans are thwarted anyway, because the policeman is dead. Everyone who's not retarded, A, saw this coming, and B, also recognizes how stupid this is. Obviously he died of a poison candy, but when did he get it? Also, when did he eat it? How fast does it kill anyway? Also, why the fuck did he eat it in the first place? Wasn't this guy stationed here by Lunge to prevent Adolf from getting poisoned? However, that's supposed to work anyway. Why the fuck would he eat some candy given to him by a complete stranger if he knows that there's someone who likes to smuggle poison into other people's food? Completely retarded, not that this is a big shocker by now. The beauty of the scene is that it continues to get even dumber, as Adolf is now running away from the hospital. Why? Where are you running? The corridor's empty, no one is here to flee from. And if you run away anywhere, run to the closest doctor or nurse to protect you. Do not leave the building. Do not run somewhere with no witnesses. That would be idiotic. Tenma arrives at the scene, clock in hand, finds the corpse and sees the corridors open and catches a glimpse of Adolf running.
Why are you running?
At least they are running with good music, while Tenma makes a pretty big stretch.
あの時と同じだ。キャンディーによる毒殺、私の患者の失踪、9年前のあの時と一緒だ。
Why are you running?
But seriously, why is he running? Did he see Johann standing there? If that's the case, I guess he just winds up where he winds up out of pure coincidence. It would also mean that Johann somehow got ahead of him, or at least caught up to him, without breaking a sweat. This would make a lot more sense if he would be the one chasing Johann, but that would make no sense either, he is afraid of Johann. It would also mean that after finally catching up with Johann, all he does is sit down. So either his motivation makes sense, but it is physically impossible, or it is possible but nonsensical. Or he just decided to run away from the corpse and happened to end up at the exact place that Johann is standing around, which obviously makes total sense. How do you fuck something up that badly? Once Tenma catches up with Adolf, the man is cowering on the ground. Adolf shouts at Tenma to leave the scene, but makes no attempt at doing so himself. He also reveals that it was Johann who hired them. Johann is nice enough to let him finish his exposition, then kills him after Tenma repeats Johann's backstory to him for some reason. Johann then remarks that Johann was a name he used to use a long time ago, which makes absolutely no sense in the context of the show, as Johann has always, and will always, refer to himself as Johann. Johann used fake names during these 9 years, yes, but he never sheds the name Johann, and we can see him using it surprisingly frequently. Technically Johann is a fake name itself, yes, but that doesn't change the fact that it is certainly his main one, and him talking about it as if it's a name that he has not used a long time contradicts a lot of information that is revealed later in the show. Almost as if the series was written as it went along, and was in dire need of some serious redrafting. Johann also says that his past needs to remain a secret, for whatever reason, and then he adds that he sees Tenma as a father as well, which will get quite weird, but we'll get there. Tenma also shouts at Johann that he shall not kill, but he actually has no answer to Johann's simple, why not? Instead, Tenma starts to tell him how saving his life was such a big game changer, yada yada. So, not only did Tenma fail to answer one of the easiest questions in existence, but he also just answered what human life means to him specifically, because Tenma can't bear to have a conversation that's not about him apparently. That being, a way to push his own fragile ego by saving it. Just wow. Seriously, Naoki, how did you manage to write such a selfish piece of garbage? This is how you see human life? No words about how our life can be worth living if we make it a good one, or only someone who is alive can turn it around, so death is never a good thing. You know, anything that would fall in line with what your character is supposed to believe from what we know? But Naoki Urasawa decided to go with, human life is what makes me feel good if I save it. How are you so bad at this, Naoki? Why the fuck do people praise this series as if it has some deep meaning behind it? I mean, sure, we only at episode 4, but do you really believe that it gets better? Because it actually does, even if not by all that much. And it never loses its undertone of idiocy, and Naoki's extremely transparent writing meant to cover up that he has no clue what he's writing about. Even though he has so many good ingredients to work with, a man will somehow pretty much always manage to make the worst possible meal out of them. Johann then points out that Tenma's life is a lot more pleasant because Johann killed his former bosses, because Tenma wished for it, to which the doctor doesn't respond. In fact, he seems so stunned by this amazing revelation, that he apparently never thought about in the last 9 years, despite the whole crying and laughing part, that he lets Johann walk away. And I mean, walk away. Very slowly. At a snail's pace. Tenma does fuck nothing to stop him, despite him even sharing a look after Johann thanks him again for saving his ass back then. Okay, Tenma, he's just a clearly deranged serial killer who just shot a man right in front of you, but sure, let him go. Also, all of the middle-aged couple murder squad are dead now, which will probably make the police want to ask Tenma what the hell just happened. So, Tenma gets interrogated by the police, but Lunge does not believe him. Lunge also completely ignores the question of his fellow policemen, who ask him whether or not they should search for Johann. I have to assume he ignores it completely, because my fucking god would never be easy to find him. Johann did a lot of shit during these 9 years, including buying a goddamn house using the name Johann Liebert, and also founding a nondescript organization for nondescript money laundering, which is another laughably stupid thing, but we'll get there. Then Tenma breaks down crying for some reason.